Hi guys, welcome back. Welcome back to Marantz. Rantz. Plenty of good information, a little bit of motivation, whole lot of truth, no financial advice. This is connecting the dots part 15. Now I was asked to look into Kohl's. Company is Kohl's. Solid stock price, went for it, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to draw it all out for you guys. We're going to go ahead and take some time to break it down. It's been a story. You know, all these parts that we've been doing, if you've watched 1 through 14, you have a little bit more knowledge on private equity, leverage buyouts, and the effect they have on publicly traded companies and or the share price that you might own one of these companies, right? I'm looking at all companies, looking at all connections, and that's how we connect the dots. So I'll give you a little bit of history with it, and we'll talk about it. From my standpoint, Kohl's is probably one of the strongest companies that I've looked at. There is a reason why private equity has swept in from what I've done the research on, and that is mainly because of the real estate aspect of Kohl's. They want to do a selling of the real estate to lease it back. They're called leasebacks. And if you do it that way, you will make money if you're Kohl's and or if you're the partnering, real estate firm, whoever may be that owns the real estate at that point. But we're going to talk about it in a different light because there's so many connections to private equity. It's scary. From my standpoint, I'll give you my breakdown, my recommendation at the end, like I do with all of them. But here we go. This is Kohl's, okay? So thank you guys so much. Let's go get it. All right, I take myself off the screen so that we can focus on what we're looking at, guys. And right here, this is Connecting the Dots, part 15 by myself, Rantz. This is Kohl's. Currently trading at $23.38. Some people ask me if they should get into it because of earnings. Earnings was a couple of weeks ago, and everyone was trying to jump into it, and I said I wouldn't at that time. I said it live on the live stream, and it was about $27, $28. I can't remember, but all I know is it's come down after earnings because it really doesn't matter what they announce in this standpoint. I want to look at another quarter, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's go ahead and see what has been happening at Kohl's. Previously, there was a couple of groups to write letters to Kohl's, and I'm going to highlight all those guys. And you know what they do? Private equity firms write these letters that have been widely renowned. I mean, Carl Icahn writes a letter, Drexel and Lambert writes a letter back in the days, in the 90s, and now Apollo. Apollo really doesn't write too many letters, but it's more the startup guys, the little guys who are trying to maneuver things. And when I say that, it's because there's so many pieces to the pie when it comes to private equity, leverage buyouts, and bankruptcies. And right now, the category killers, which are these stores, right? It could be Michael's, it could be Kohl's, it could be Joanne, what was it? It was a Joanne Fabrics or something to that effect. Party City, Tuesday Morning, Neiman Marcus. I'm just trying to name some that I know of that have since filed for bankruptcy in the last couple of years. And that's because these retail models don't really exist on a great scale. Kohl's has a lot of assets that are worth a lot of money. Kohl's has a credit card, Kohl's has online, and Kohl's has a following. And that's why I say it's one of the strongest. But we'll look at it and we'll see how it's been getting weaker as the years have gone on. So here's the first thing. There's a group called Engine Capital. Engine Capital wrote a letter to Kohl's suggesting that they sell off their e-commerce business. They actually asked them to sell it off for about $12 billion. That's the value they gave it. If you look here, I looked at Engine Capital, and when they gave it an evaluation of around $12 billion just on e-commerce alone, guys, that tells you that they were pushing it really high. But as you can also see, Engine Capital sent the letter to the board of directors of Univar. Okay, I want to pay attention to that really quick. And another position that they increased was Engine Capital increased their Apollo management position by 1,000, almost 1,100%, owning actual shares in Apollo. If you look at Univar, that's their largest change in position in addition to Apollo Global Management on there. Now, guys, this company, Univar, just so we're clear, was just recently bought out by Apollo. So they pushed Univar to sell their company via a letter. That's this company, Engine Capital, and Apollo bought them for 8.1. Now they're doing it again telling Kohl's they need to sell their company. Now, does it mean that Apollo is going to buy Kohl's? I wouldn't go that far. We can tie it that way, but I'm just telling you, I don't want to get wrapped up in one firm. I want to tell you that private equity is sweeping across multiple firms. So I want people to know that. But let's go. And I mean, multiple private equity firms are sweeping onto publicly traded companies. It's called jumping. And you guys know about it. We highlighted it in the last video. So here is the managing partners for Engine Capital. It's really easy to tie them to private equity and Apollo, mainly because I just showed you that they actually pushed companies like Univar to Apollo. But as you look at this individual here, this is the founder and portfolio manager. And if you look all the way down, he's previously of Boston Consulting Group, the Boston Consulting Group, I apologize. And so you know what kind of private equity firm that would, have ties to. Brad here Brad is another partner for these guys. RDM Corporation is who he served on the board of directors with, and if you know, Apollo Impact to acquire approximately 67%. So Apollo bought out 67% on that on RDM Group. So direct ties to Apollo. As we look at this, they actually gave Kohl's an evaluation of $12.4 billion, is what you see. They would like to see it, restructured and run a different way. That was at $75 a share, is what they were willing to offer at the time. I want you to recognize the price of Kohl's right now at $23. Remember, Kohl's was fighting for years, guys. Kohl's has been fighting off private equity, and they were doing it a couple of different ways. But what happened was Macellum and Ancura, the same two companies that infiltrated Bed Bath & Beyond, went over to Kohl's and started writing letters. And I've read these letters front to back. They are nasty. They're telling you Kohl's doesn't know what they're doing. Michelle Gass is their CEO. She's terrible. All of this is happening at the time. So right here, you're going to see the proxy advisory firm. Remember we talked about this yesterday, why Bed Bath & Beyond has had 3 different proxy companies? Because you have to find a proxy company that's going to back your current agenda. And right here, proxy advisory firm ISS backs Macellum's push for boardroom change at Kohl's. So they found the guys in place. If you look at ISS, be careful, guys. They have their parent company used to be in World Trade Center building number 7. I went and looked up all this stuff. It was like MSCI, I forget what their name. There's deep ties there to the deep state type style. But as you look at this, guys, they went ahead and gave the nod to 2 people, Jeffrey Cantor and Pamela Edwards. Jeffrey Cantor, if you look, we used to work for Macy's. You know how I feel about this. Macy's has direct ties all the way back to the old days, and we'll get through that, and that's with Drexel Burnham Lambert, if you saw the last video. Now you look at Pamela Edwards. She's with Citi Trends, which Citi Trends has direct ties, and Neiman Marcus, of course, Neiman Marcus was Apollo owned. They owned the debt. They had Mark Billinson on the board of directors for Neiman Marcus. He is on the board of directors for Apollo right now, and she used to work for Neiman Marcus, and she got hired on here. As, she was a CFO, executive vice president for Citi Trends, and we'll talk about them. Citi Trends, deep ties for me, only because they started out in Savannah, Georgia. I used to live there for like 3 years while I was in the military. Good times. Now look at this. ISS suggests shareholders may consider Macellum's managing partner, Jonathan Duskin, as a potential addition to the board. He's trying to get onto this board as well. You knew he tried to get onto the Bed Bath & Beyond board. They settled for Sue Gove instead. And as you look at that, that was 2019. This is happening right now. This is all 2022, 2021, 2023, everything I'm showing you guys. So just know Jonathan Duskin is the guy who came from Global Crossing. He's also the guy who came from Drexel Burnham Lambert. Like, he actually has those ties, direct ties, but he came from SAC Capital as well. So he's in the mix, the same guy who's been in the mix with every deal you've seen so far. But I want to go ahead and give you what it is. This is why I don't get involved with Kohl's, because if he's there writing these letters, I wonder what they've actually agreed to. So right here, you'll see, according to Macellum, ISS noted that the activist investment has already had a positive impact with the addition of Christine Day, and I believe his name is Kingsbury, which is the current, and we'll talk about that in a minute. He currently is on the board in other positions, so we'll talk about it. Right here, this is what happened. So we wrote the letter, got it out there. They did a proxy. They did a vote. And the vote was for either you're going to vote for the white card or the blue card. And everyone was giving you ideas of who to vote for. The blue card was going to be, and this will explain it to you right here, the short-term approach. Duskin appears to be advocating for a quick sale at any price. $64 a share is what he feels the company's worth. He's soliciting. He's letting you know that, that they're ready to sell. But I want to show you this. Right here, Bed Bath & Beyond on the board. They went ahead and committed. Now, this is crazy, okay? Macellum is the one who stabilized the sales growth for Bed Bath & Beyond. What have they done since? They've lost all their profits, all their money. Big Lots as well, and the Children's Place. Big Lots was going to be occupied by or acquired by Apollo, and they backed out in 2020 because of the pandemic. They realized that the real estate rates were going sky high, and they said, no, thank you. But Macellum organized another deal that I want people to pay attention to, and we will talk about it in a minute. So here you go. The white proxy card is what Macellum has put together. And on the white proxy card, they had a whole bunch of inexperienced board of directors that they were trying to plan on this board, and no one was agreeing to it. So they had the blue card as well. The blue card was going to be what Bed Bath & Beyond. Oh my goodness. No edits, no cuts. You guys know this works. The blue card is exactly what Kohl's wanted, and they wanted their professionals to be on there. They did not want to be infiltrated. while all that's happening, guys, while they're asking for changes on the board of directors, or while they're initiating, these letters that are being put in, you will see what Kohl, this is an actual piece from Kohl's, I believe it's their proxy that they put out. It shows you that Masellan was day trading Kohl's options, call contracts, while they're writing letters to manipulate stock pricing. So they were making millions of dollars. 2.5 million is what they bought. They bought call options representing 2.5 million in shares. They day traded the damn stock. So they actually, when they put in the letter and pumped it up, they were making money off that letter. They manipulated the stock, and that's what they wanted to show you. And Kura sends a letter to the board of directors and telling them they need a new chairman, a new CEO, all the stuff, right, for a turnaround experience. Now that's the problem here, guys. You have two people out here telling you that they want to change, and that's, well, three people really, right? You had Engine, you have Ankura, and you have Masellan. Guys, I'm going to tell you Masellan and why they are calling the shots. Masellan Advisors works with dysfunctional boards to help decision making revolve around performance. So they've done it with Big Lots, which I told you was about to be bought out by Apollo, but didn't go through. City Trends, who has direct ties. The Children's Place was filed for bankruptcy, and that's ties to like Disney and other companies as well. L Brands as well, guys. And L Brands, if you don't know, that's Leslie Wexner, that's Victoria's Secret, and that has direct ties, if you go through it, to you have Leon Black, and of course, when he was out there giving out money to the guy who's touching little kids. I don't even like to say his name, but Jeffrey Epstein. But I'll leave it there. So if you guys don't know that connection, go look at it. So here you go. Heather Pulitino, whatever her name is, she's a CFO right now at City Trends, former Bed Bath & Beyond. So you guys understand how the connection works. I try to tell you this is how it's done. They just go plant you into these companies, and those are the companies that they run, the private equity themselves. You see this guy, John Frascati, he was running Hasbro, went over to Party City, helped them go bankrupt. Children's Place, the same thing, and now he's here at Kohl's as well. So they have their plants in place. They're ready to go. Private equity bidders, they started making the largest dump. And then when you look at this, a franchise group, okay? Franchise group made a push for Kohl's, guys. This is very recent. And then they turned down the push. But if you look what the franchise group has done, they literally have decimated Art Van Furniture. If you guys remember Art Van, and I believe it was episode 1 or 2, we talked about it. Thomas H. Lee had ties to Art Van, and they helped them ruin it. Sycamore Partners, all these guys, Leonard Green and Partners, they've helped all these companies go bankrupt, and I put them up there for you guys so you guys can see. So there's this track record that's involved with franchise group. I wonder why. Remember David Kasten? I know, we don't try to connect Bed Bath & Beyond to everything, but holy hell. So if you look in here, they agreed to try to buy it out, guys. And Starboard Value is the one who was pushing this. They were backing a hedge fund, a research corp, for $64 a share. Starboard Value, remember, they used to own Yahoo. They're the ones who were pushing Yahoo to sell. And of course, Apollo bought out Yahoo. So still here, same thing. Everyone has their hands on the cookie jar here at Kohl's. Dave Alves has since been fired or left, but he was part of the Bell's Retail Group. They went ahead and filed for bankruptcy. TJ Maxx filed for bankruptcy and or been bought out plenty of times. And then Hudson Bay Company, you guys know how I found that one. That was Catalyst, and that was all driven by Fresh Market. Catalyst owned Fresh Market, and by doing that, understand they used to also own Hudson Bay, and who bought out Fresh Market? Apollo. So direct ties indirectly with those guys, but don't worry, he's gone. There's another person in place now. He just quit like 3 weeks ago. The franchise group has also been talking about Oaktree acquiring Kohl's real estate, right, for the sell lease back deal. Now, this is what I told you would happen. If you guys don't know what happened, here's how it all went down. Bed Bath & Beyond did the same thing. They did the same thing. They actually sold out their value of their company, their assets, their real estate portfolio, and they did that to Oak Street, $250 million. Now, everybody puts Mark Trinton's name on here, but remember what I told you. It happened in 2020. Who was running the shots at Bed Bath & Beyond in 2020? Masellan and Ankura, and Sue Gove, and everyone else on that board that they planted there. So that's why they went ahead and struck up this deal. They also had a deal ready to go for Big Lots at $725 million. Same idea, the sell leaseback program. Guys, this is what ruins companies. I've seen it happen to Sears, and now you see it happen, and they want it to happen to Kohl's, and they're trying to give you a price, and I'm going to explain all that to you in a minute. But what you really want to look at is something like this. Apollo was providing $2 billion on the offer for Kohl's just a couple of months ago. And this is like, what was this? Well, actually last year. This is June 9th. But from what I know, they turned it down. And they resubmitted another offer, but it still wasn't enough. They turned it down again. Apollo's giving money to the franchise group. Franchise group is not a big company, guys. They've never ran a company like this. Guys, Kohl's is big. Kohl's is doing almost $20 billion in sales a year. We'll go over that in a minute. But I'm just telling you, Apollo is giving the money to the franchise group to buy it. So, hey, franchise group, you're getting funding from Apollo. And we know who works for the franchise group, right? David Caston? All right, I'm just making sure. All right, so here you go. Your vote counts at Kohl's. This is going to be May 9th. This is coming up, May 9th. I know other things are going on May 9th, and everyone wants to pay attention to other stocks. I'm telling you, I'm paying attention to this one right here. They want to vote for these board of directors. Guys, I'm nervous for the board of directors. And as you look at them, there's 11 of them. I look at how many facilities they own. This is the store distribution centers. One's extremely close to me in San Bernardino. But as I look at this, they own millions of square footage of distribution centers. They're massive e-commerce fulfillment centers. They have 6 of those. This is a lot of assets to have. But as you look at the May 5th, the board of directors here, these are the executive officers. Thomas Kingsbury is 70 years old, guys. That means a lot to me because that means he's been around for a long time. And when you've been around a long time, that means you definitely have ties. In my mind, if you've been jumping from company to company, somewhere down this road, you've been manipulated because how do you show up here? How do you show up here? And I'll explain it. So Jonas Praising, he's on the board of directors over here. He's a director. He's the CEO of Manpower Group. That's a staffing agency. Manpower Group, let me tell you guys, they have direct ties to Apollo. They had a partnership with Apollo Education Management, and they had that going too. So I know his ties are there. But as I look at this list, guys, I'm going to start highlighting people. We'll go to Thomas Kingsbury first. CEO, right? CEO of Kohl's. And it's weird the way he got the position. He got it as in Michelle Gass finally stepped out. He became the interim CEO. And then later on, they announced that he would be the main CEO. But do you know where he comes from? Do you remember the group called Federate? I believe it's Federated, right? Isn't that what I called it before? Because I really didn't know how to say it. I still don't know how to say it. But that's the one who actually transitioned over to May Company. And as you look at him, he transitioned to May Company department stores and then Burlington stores and then to Kohl's. He's been around since the 70s, guys, since 76 through Robinson's May and that whole deal that I told you with Macy's. What does that mean? That means he's seen it right here. Federated department stores and the May department stores. That's the ownership, and that's the companies that he used to work for. So he went to Burlington as well. And as we look at this guy, Burlington, formerly known as Burlington Coat Factory, was bought out. This is who planted him at Burlington Coat Factory, guys. This is what I'm telling you. When you come from Macy's and you go through it all, like we've been seeing on private equity, in 2007, Bain Capital bought this out, Burlington Coat Factory. And in 2008, they put Tom Kingsbury as the CEO. So what am I telling you? Private equity planted him there. He is a plant, in my mind, allegedly, for what is private equity. Peter Boneparth, the chairman of the board for Kohl's, has direct work. He's been working, and he's still there. He's on the current chair of the board right now, former senior advisor for Blackstone. That's on the board right now. That's private equity. Jill Tim, who just took over for that David guy I was telling you about earlier. She used to work for Arthur Andersen, LLP. That's not where you want to work. And I'm sorry, Jill, I don't want to call you out that way, but Arthur Andersen, it was one of the big 5 on consulting firms. Now they're gone forever because they were the ones that gave Lehman Brothers, and they told him, if you ever go do the history on these guys, go look at them, Arthur Andersen. They were a terrible consulting firm. They're the ones who signed off on everything saying Lehman Brothers was going to be okay. They're a good company. And guess what? They went under, and it's because they had bad auditing, and that was Arthur Andersen. So Jill, Tim, good luck with it. You're going to need it. Yael Cosset, whatever the hell this guy's name is, CIO and Chief Digital Officer at Kroger. Who owns Kroger? Apollo. You guys don't know that deal? Ralph's, Kroger, Albertsons, that's all Apollo-based. Apollo put in like $2 billion, $1.75 billion, somewhere in that range. So that's an Apollo plant connection for me. Michael Bender, if you look at him, this is all board of directors for Kohl's, guys, by the way. If you're not paying attention, which you should. I see a lot of ties to Pepsi all the time, guys. I'm scared for Pepsi execs, but he used to work for L Brands. And remember when I told you about L Brands and Victoria's Secret? That's direct ties to Jeffrey Epstein, who's best friends with Leon Black. And if you don't know what happened with L Brands, and then you can go figure this out. But I'll let you play on that. I'm going to stay out of it for a little bit because I'm going to show you exactly what happened the minute Thomas Kingsbury became CEO of this company. See, Michelle Gass stepped down after being badgered with letter after letter after letter. She stepped out, and this guy came in. Now, Thomas Kingsbury, what I tell you, May Company, Burlington Coat, now here, private equity plant. I look here, what did they do the first month in January of this year? They went and borrowed $1.5 billion. They secured $1.5 billion and from a credit facility. What does that mean? Well, when we look at this, the way the structure of the company goes, they own 409 buildings. They lease about 700 and something plus. Their leases are 20 to 25 years with an option from 4 to 8 years after, right? But I'm just telling you, their leases for 20 to 25 years. So hard to get out of those leases, but you want to start doing that sell lease program back. You have 409 buildings, assets to sell off, and I'm sure you get a lot of money for them. If you could look at the key financials for 2022, they had a decrease of 7.1%. They were down all the way to 17.2 billion. Their comp sales were down 6.6%. And they're showing you exactly what they don't have. Gross margin percent net sales were 33.2%, a decrease of 4.8%. Okay, 485 basis points. They had an increase on SG&A, which is not good. As if in total revenue, SG&A expense was 31% almost, an increase of 2.68%. And I keep going over everything. The operating income was $246 million compared to the 1.7 the previous year. They had a net loss on cash flow. Operating cash flow was 282 million. I will show you everything. The reason why is because their cap expenditures, cap expense is way out there. It's at $650 million, but that's because they're putting Sephora shops in most of their damn stores. It's costing you money to do Sephora, but I found out JCPenney's used Sephora as a vehicle to go, to be over leveraged. And right now, this is why they hit me half-hearted, really. I agree with having Sephora in there to compete with Target and things like that, because I believe Target has Ulta or somebody else, another makeup company. And if you look at Macy's, they have the black one, MAC Makeup. And everyone has some type of makeup in their store. And it draws a younger crowd. So you get the younger crowd there, then maybe they'll shop for things. But you got to have those brands as well. So looking at them in the infrastructure and how they're doing it, it can work, but you're going to need time and money. And those are two things that they don't have right now. So we had a negative cash flow of $639 million compared to the positive cash flow of $1.6 billion the previous year. So if you look at this here, I have the other revenue here. I have what they made in net sales. You guys will see that they're on the downtrend from here, from 19.4 all the way down to 18. Yeah, that's fine. They lost $1.5 billion. But the cash alone is just so drastic, guys. They had 1.6 all the way down to 246. And I have to look more, you have to go deeper into this finance statement, the earnings statement. But as I look into it just off the specs, you'll see that half of that is via credit cards and debt receivables. So 76 million was still needing to be paid back. So they actually float that out because they have Kohl's cash. And Kohl's cash they had a payback, I believe 5%, and they jumped it up to 7.5%, but I'll show you that. Okay. We account for repurchases of the stock. So they actually did a stock buyback program of $3 billion, which is unfortunate because they only have $200 million. So this is like a self-inflicted wound. I tell you, I would never do it this way. But last year, they literally bought back all their shares. They bought a ton of shares. They bought, I believe, 17.9 million shares is what they bought back. And, for whatever reason, their stock price didn't reflect that. It actually stood flat. They got attacked during this time frame because they're literally doing the wrong thing on purpose. Remember, all of this stems from their leadership and the leadership that they put into place. If you look here, their focus was Sephora and the partnership. The Kohl's card rewards benefits by 2.5%. Like I told you, it went from 5 to 7.5. That's killer, man. If you can shop at Kohl's and manage your money, you're getting 7% back, and they all their inventory is like almost 50% off on a lot of name brand stuff because they did the wrong thing last quarter. They did not make money quarter 4. It's going to come out. The announcement's coming. Despite all these changes to the Kohl's business model, Gass left the company to become the CEO of Levi Strauss Company. Kohl's and Levi's signed a deal a couple of years ago to be exclusive, to get their 505 back in there, to get some silver tab in there. And I'll tell you what, it was looking great for a minute, but now she jumped ship because, why does she need all the help? Why does she need to get letter after letter from these hedge funds, these distressed credit investors, these guys with the handout? She's just like, I'm out of here. And that's when Tom Kingsbury served as the interim CEO. Now, Kohl's announced it's going to lay off a lot of corporate employees, 60 employees at the corporate level, and they decided to keep CEO Tom as the permanent replacement, just like Sue Gove. Sue Gove did the same thing, and now Tom Kingsbury's doing the same thing, but Tom Kingsbury's been around for a long time, just like Sue has. So those are two senior plants, and they're in the company. So what does all this mean? As we look at it, I believe that's the end of all the slides that I wanted to show you. So what's my conclusion, guys? The conclusion is, if you connect the dots from Tom Kingsbury, the new CEO, to private equity, they're there. You also can see that Macellum is calling the shots. Macellum's calling the shots for this company, just like they're calling the shots for Bed Bath & Beyond. I let history be the indicator of what's happening to my investment. This is not an investment I would make for Kohl's. At $23, it is a value investment. It's clearly valued way more than that. But the problem is, it looks like they're anticipating a spinoff and to start selling assets out of it to get cash and or to over leverage past that. They did a share buyback program. We know what Bed Bath & Beyond did. There's so many parallels to Bed Bath & Beyond here. It's unfortunate because it's the same companies running it. The same exact two, Ancora and Macellum, and they're in Bed Bath & Beyond, and they're in Kohl's. And I'm telling you right now, all the private equity plants that are in there, I wouldn't touch it. I don't risk my money this way. I'm a long type of investor. I love investing in companies that have great boards, great leadership, and great fundamentals. The financials make sense. Here, $18 billion in sales, but only $200 million cash. That tells me that they're very irresponsible with the way they run their business. And they're going to have to take out more than just $1.5 billion to stay, afloat. No one's listening to the way you run your business. Everyone's trying to listen to these failed hedge funds. Jonathan Duskin, this guy who's been giving out bad information for a long time. Every company he's touched has gone bankrupt. But let me tell you guys, you start listening to guys like Mark Vadden, you're going to understand how to run your business. And what does he say during an economic downturn? He says, sit on your hands. Let your business make you the money. You'll know when to come in with your cash. This is not it. So Kohl's, check off my list. Private equity's involved. I'll stay out of it. They finally did put Michelle Gass out to pasture. She fought him off as long as she could. Kudos to her. She really tried. I was reading the letters. Guys, I read them all. And I'm telling you right now, she tried, but what can you do when they put constant pressure and constant new people on the board, new plants on the board, and you guys see them all. So enjoy, guys. I'll see you around. I'm going to go out with the wife tonight, but I thank you guys so much. GameStop. Can't stop, won't stop, GameStop. It's the only thing I'm buying besides Costco? Maybe. Peace.